Alright, it has been a moment since part 2, and I've been a bit busy. So, last time, Nick just had his foot crushed by a bulkhead door, and an alien other than one of the cutters or the brutes approached him. Considering the door stopped, I'm not sure why the cutter did not pull the rest of Nick through the other side. I mean, we know why it's so plot can happen. Nick wakes up, and the alien that saved him addresses him in a tone that suggests contempt.
Bless me. The dead human awakened.
For reasons, Nick has to remember that the station is under attack and that Amanda was killed. Well, he says murdered, but it seems more like when a predator kills its prey than a conscious act. But then again, predators in the wild will kill for the fun of it. Nick also has to remember his foot was crushed. Dr. Mech, voiced by Kate Milgrew, aka Captain Janeway, the alien who saved him, lets him know she grew another one hours ago. Some inconsequential questions arise from this, or at least I have a few. One, did she chop off the foot and grew it from the stump, or did she grow one and attach it to the stump? Two, is that the same boot slash jumpsuit? And if not, where did she get the spare clothing in the biolab? At one point, Dr. Mech's race was at war with at least the humans, and she knows who Nick is from his career in the military, and is a source of animosity towards Nick. Nick asks how to get to a vent to go look for Dag, and Dr. Mech asks Nick to bring back a specimen after she tells him how to get into the vents. He can also talk to Dr. Mech's assistant, Fred, who is voiced by Brad Dourif, known for his role as Chucky from the Child Play movies. He conveys that the aliens do not like bright lights. This only comes into play once in the whole entire game. After going down the vent, the power in the sector Nick is in is off, making the game dark. Combined with the game originally being made for a CRT TV, and not an OLED monitor, it's almost impossible to see, and the footage I do have is unusable, except to show how dark it is. Basically, I had to stumble around after cranking the brightness up on the monitor to finally get the power back on. This included fighting new enemy types they call scouts in the darkness. I suppose the auto-target lock-on was a bit of good fortune in this case. Once the power is back on, Nick can find a circuit board needed to fix an elevator, which you could not acquire until the lights were on, because he couldn't see. I do find it odd that during the whole time, a dull sort of hum in multiple variants is the only background noise. And when the lights come on, there is a brief moment, although very brief, where they play a bit of that eerie string music. After activating the elevator and going down and getting off the elevator, Dag almost shoots him again. Yeah, I'm sort of wondering if this is going to be a running joke. I say that because I actually have already forgotten most of the game and I have to refer to a lot of my footage. The trigger-happy nature of the security chief is a bit disturbing, though, in that regards. After going to the security station and decoding the signal, allowing Nick to talk to Niles, Niles tells Nick and Dag he is trapped on the wreck deck, or maybe the wreck area of the space station. And then his transmission just stops, which is fine. But I wanted to show this part because I wanted to emphasize the rough transitions from cutscenes to gameplay. When Dag and Nick get to the wreck deck, the doors to the elevator open up in time for one of the lizard men to be struck down by a red cutter. Part of the game that caught my attention long ago was the promise of aliens evolving and changing tactics. How naive I was back then. All this entailed in terms of the game was adding a few new enemies and changing the color and the stats of existing ones. Like this red cutter, which is easily countered by adding damage chips to your guns. Speaking of guns, because there's limited ammo for some guns, like the shotgun, they tend to be a bit useless because there's no steady supply of ammo, and way too many monsters to shoot. It seems some of the survival horror stayed in the game, but was not balanced out with the increase of things to kill. So, for the most part, I only used weapons with infinite ammo and only used the upgrade chips on those weapons, like the rifle. So, after Dag does his whole grieving thing because a comrade or same member of his species died, they bring up the conversation about the new scorpion things called scouts and wonder where they came from. It's a bit odd that they're bringing it up now, but they are. I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be linked to the change in the color, but they didn't address the change in the color. They brought up the scouts. So the dialogue here just doesn't quite make sense in that regards. Maybe if they talked about the change in the cutters and then also brought up the scouts, that would have made more sense. Anyways, this leads to a hypothesis that the various monsters or aliens are being made. After that, the pair head to the theater to look for Niles. When they get to the theater, there's another brute on the stage guarding something. It will not attack unless Nick gets too close. I did shoot it on accident while fighting a couple of cutters, and fortunately it did not care. While going back through my footage, I forgot that Dad gave Nick a shield generator that is supposed to act like armor and can be recharged. The shields are so ineffective that I barely notice they are there because they get down in a hit or two, even later in the game when you get stronger shields. I feel like it's a bit of an odd place to talk about the shields, but when getting the power back on to the theater controls is the first time I took damage while I had them, it's when I actually noticed in the footage that I had shields. And the first instance of combat where I actually had them, because you don't get them until you find Dag in the security deck. After getting the theater controls back online, Nick goes to the control panel and activates the stage lights, using that tidbit of info Fred gave to Nick earlier to scare off the brute. This is the only time bright lights will be used in the game. After locating Niles, the small group sets off to look for Jesse, who went out to look for help. After finding a note somewhere in the wreck area, they head to a different deck to go look for him. On the new deck that looks like the same one from the prelude, just trashed, after having to explore and find a key card that I had no idea I needed to have, because the game never tells you it's needed to move on with the game. Another cutscene plays with a new alien rubbing its limbs over another new creature, confirming Dag's hypothesis of the monsters being made. This one is a bit peculiar in that it looks like Nick, or maybe the station commander, and begs multiple questions. If it's the developers reusing assets, is it formed from Nick's / the commander's DNA? Or is it supposed to look human to mess with you? It's probably like a combination of the first and the last one, to be honest. It gets a bit awkward after this cutscene because it happens in a hallway Niles stayed behind in, and the layout does not look the same on top of Niles just standing there and watching the whole entire time. When Nick goes into the door next to Niles, you get another boss battle with more rock music playing. In my old age, I have become a bit picky when it comes to some mechanics, like hitboxes. I know why they are used in games, but after playing games like Monster Hunter World, where the hitboxes are 10 times bigger than the object doing the hitting, I kind of developed a distaste for overly large hitboxes, although I still like the Monster Hunter games. Don't get me wrong on that front. And I do have a bit of a leeway for older games due to the nature of older technology and in some cases learning to design games in 3D spaces. This game has some of the most egregious hitboxes I have ever seen in any game. I'm not in front of it, and it's not even touching me, and it's doing damage. On top of that, the shields and the dodge are absolutely doing nothing to negate damage, except I had one instance where the dodge seemed to work, but it was the exception and not the rule in this case. And I admit I was not paying attention to my health bar, and this is the second time I died in the game. The whole fight is nothing more than a war of attrition, so you better hope you have enough healing items on hand. After this fight, a door opens and the party finds Jesse, but Nick is not done yet. He has to capture a specimen, with both Jesse and Niles stating they have noticed a weakness to the cold when it comes to the aliens. And Jesse suggests to use the cafeteria's freezer. Now, this raises some more questions later on because space can get really hot and really cold, but I'll get to that later. So Nick has to lure a cutter into a freezer. It's not that hard with a convenient flesh wall that spits out a single cutter, and then Nick runs into the freezer, where you actually don't really have to do anything. Nick just does the rest and shuts the door. The cutter freezes in seconds, and Niles brings in a cart in another jarring cutscene transition, but this time it's into another cutscene, and they shove it into a glorified dumbwaiter. Nick then notices that the flesh growing in the station is spreading, and the chapter ends just like that. And it kind of feels like a no-brainer that we knew the flesh was spreading because it wasn't there to begin with, but that's just me. With all of that, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 4.